verse in Genesis is in the beginning God created. Stop. We are creators. Like now I have a whole different mind on how I'm. So I think bringing books into the household period. I don't care if it's Thomas the Train, Dr. Seuss.
Welcome to another episode of As a Man Reader. This is D
and Goolsby.
And we have special guests today.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you've seen on the internet right now. It's everywhere at this particular point. Definitely on YouTube. Check it out. Look in the show notes. But check out the documentary called They Said Niggas Don't Read.
Niggas don't read.
And we've always said read a book.
Right.
So it's, you know, when we met these guys, one of the things that was just perfect was like, oh, wait a minute. We're trying to get people to read. We've been, wait. What's this documentary about?
Them is two brothers.
Yeah.
Who talking about books.
Yeah.
Talking about reading books.
Yeah.
Two crumb.
Yeah.
And we two brothers.
That's just trying to get a little bit of reading in here and there.
Just read the book.
Yes. At least once.
Just one.
But listen, we got Sadiq Ali and Karim Ali, the co-directors of They Say Niggas Don't Read, the documentary that's everywhere. Hopefully you pick it up. I'll actually check it out as soon as you finish from here. Share it with your friends. Fellas, thank you all so much for being here.
Nah, bro, it's our pleasure.
Yeah, it's our pleasure for sure. Thank you so much.
What did you think about the trailer? Let's talk through it for a quick second. I thought it was great.
Well, I got excited because I was like, I know I'm not the only brother who says, I be like, brothers don't read, right?
Yes.
I say that because I was taught not to say the N-word. Right. Niggas is in the title, I'm going to say it.
Yes.
Because what does that mean exactly? I know 1 out of every 3 people I know don't read a book. I already know. My brother proudly said, I don't read. I said, don't say that around nobody, for real. And then my other friend, like, I don't either. I'm like, what are we talking about? All the secrets of the universe is in books. Yes. It's like we can live now from then. It's like the present is always there.
And so, you know, like one of the things, if you look back a couple of episodes, we talked about how funny it was when we started this podcast. It was just us reading books, and we would call each other. It's like, hey, before we even did the podcast, it was just us calling. And we reading this together. We call, do a check-in. What you think? This, that, and other. And said, hey, let's do this.
Yep.
So to have you guys here, as we kind of, it's just one of the things that we've been big advocates of is just getting people back into.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we're excited to have you here, man. Definitely. Listen, I want to go ahead and just jump right in. You know, the title, you know, when you sent me the title, when you sent me the name, I was like, oh, it's already provocative enough. But, you know, when you take it a little bit deeper, you know, what was the choosing behind that title? Was it to be provocative? You know, it gets the people going. Or is it just a spark conversation? Tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah, I'll show you.
You want to start with
Yeah, I can lead us off. So number one, before we even jump in, just want to reflect that shine back to you two brothers. Again, deeply appreciative of you all's platform, what you all have chosen to do with it, right? Because we know one thing about 2025 and the age of information is like everybody got a microphone, everybody got a platform, and what you choose to do with that platform says a lot about who you are. And the fact that you all have chosen to use this platform to uplift, you know, topics and conversations that are germane to us as Black folks, and that you all are modeling that example. I just couldn't be more appreciative of you brothers. So just wanted to start off and say that. You know, as it pertains to the title, you know, the first thing that we always like to share about it is that, you know, it was absolutely divinely gifted to me. You know, after Karim and I reconnected and decided to do this project, it wasn't me sitting around like, man, let's think about the most like shocking, provocative thing. It was in a moment of silence that the title, I believe, came to me in a sort of jolt of divine inspiration. And so I want to make that clear first. Secondly, we understand that word, you know, there's a visceral reaction to that word. We know that it's a hurtful past of that word. Mm-hmm. And we also know, as Karim often shares, and again, I don't want to take from his points, but like, we didn't call ourselves that. We didn't create that word. That was, you know, forced upon us. And so there are so many different layers to that title. And, you know, there's both a harmful piece of the stereotype that is embedded in the title, but we also know that in every stereotype, there's a modicum of truth, or else it wouldn't permeate. And so, you know, the things that we're hoping folks, you know, sort of take away from this title is all of that context, but also like we want folks to be a little bit shocked for sure. We want folks to be provoked into action. We want folks to be jarred a little bit as well, because one of the things that we believe with this project is that folks are also really, really comfortable right now. And it takes a little bit of discomfort, a little bit of like, oh, it's not, in order to wake folks up. And then again, especially right now, you also have to get folks' attention in order to sort of like put the little bit of honey and sweet inside the medicine, and so that our folks, especially our young folks, will be sort of tuned in enough to sort of get what it is that we're trying to get. And so that's a little bit on the title. Kareem, you added in a very special and important piece of the title as well, though. So I want to toss it to you.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. I mean, it's all that. And as they say, a bag of chips, right? It's so much more that we've been dealing with for some time. Wrestling. Don't think Sadiq and I haven't wrestled, with the title and going back and forth. I had the thought, man, as a people, as a soulfully indigenous people, man, we have evolved to a place where we definitely don't consider ourselves that, albeit I would say 7 or 8 out of 10 people that'll be watching this say it in private, so don't even trip. We all know that. We use the word, but we don't necessarily use it in public, and a lot of us practice this politics of respectability. And so I get it. We get it. And as, we've been in this process of doing the film, more and more is actually coming across the radar for us to take note of. And recently I've taken note of, there were a few, I think, films and some things I was reading that actually did point out that visceral reaction to that word nigga, or with the ER, or with the AS, more so with the ER, at the end of Shotgun, and then the shotgun blast, with that being the last thing someone heard before they died. It's not something that we take lightly. The history, like he said, that word and all that it stands for is a caricature. It was something that was created, but that was never who we were or who we are. And so, with that being said, we believe that it's actually a time now, good enough time than any, to have a conversation. Quite honestly, and I will just say this, I was offended when they came out and now was the N-word. We shouldn't say that. And it mostly was, white folks saying that, well, we shouldn't say. It was, wait a minute. You called up. We didn't name ourselves, but now we can't use the word. I was job offended by that. Like, So, not that I want to go off and, wear a T-shirt with that word, but I was also like, how do we get appropriated, misappropriated, and then told that, well, no, we got to be respectful. So, in my view, it's like, no, let's do our art, let's do our work, and not be afraid of, what people might think. If we're standing on, truth, and we're standing on something that is going to be valuable. And so what came to me, as Sadiq was saying, that title actually came to him, it was sort of delivered to his heart, delivered to his mind. What came to me was the context that we use when we say they said. And the minute that I said it, he was on board. The minute that he even said the title to me, niggas don't read, I was on board. And then I ended up, just thinking over and over, well, why am I on board with that? Well, one, that's my man. I'm going to back your play. Then two, I started thinking back on these conversations I was having in my own mind about, really, being a little offended to be told what I can say or how I should think. And, so it was all of that. So here we are, fast forward. Lastly, I'll put this on the table. So I was in a class yesterday, and this was with a group of white filmmakers. I'd say about a dozen of them, because I'm in an advanced course for film production, filmmaking, film creative. And I went with a pitch, and I ran with, They Said NDR, and then read the log line. Everybody leaned in and was like, okay, what does NDR mean? What does that stand for? And I said, oh, okay. And I'm reading the audience thinking maybe that was going to be offensive. And then I said, okay, well, NDR stands for They Said Niggas Don't Read. I lie to you not. Every one of them was like, oh man, they sat back in their seat and they felt it. And they was like, no, you need to run with that. You need to run with it. And these were Caucasian people that told me I needed to go hard. And so that really says something about what we have come to in all this deliberation. I know that was long-winded. I told you when you give me
I say. Let me just add two other quick pieces. I know, look, this is like the first question. But
Yeah.
I will say, again, double, triple click all over Kareem shared. And we also, again, are here and are conscious and, just understanding of folks' discomfort with the word. And that's also fine. And so the subtitle, the out, as we see on my background, is always open for folks to refer our allies, because that's the other thing we're not doing is co-signing non-black folks that don't have ownership of this word like we do now officially, to co-sign them using the word all willy-nilly. That's not what we're doing. And so we invite folks to also refer to the project as the NDR project, the NDR film, number one. And then number two, we also, again, hope to again, spark this very conversation in the beauty salon, in the barbershop, about the usage of that word. Is that something that we still want to claim or have dominion over into the future? And what is at the heart of that stereotype? And why is it that we still all too often have examples in our personal circles, or for us personally, of not reading? Because to have a right and not exercise it, or to have an ability and to not exercise it, is the same as not having the ability at all. And so all of that is layered in that title, and we want this to be a mirror shining back and looking back at folks to really be able to take some action.
That's a good last
Yeah,
point I'll make is that this was at one point in this country considered a crime to teach a black person how to read. It was considered a crime. It was codified in law. And so we're actually standing on truth. And then you can draw the through lines from back then, during that time, up through the 60s, and all that occurred. And we'll talk more about the surveillance through today when you look at what's happening with our history, in a lot of different respects, and in policy having to do with, diversity, equity, inclusion. It's just taking a different face, and at the same time, it's really saying the same thing, that you niggas don't read, or you niggas won't read, or you shouldn't read.
Yeah, so you're right. That was just the first question. I like you brothers, man. I can just listen. I really can, because you are the guest and we want to know what you know. So how did this even spark off? What sparked this journey? How did you two guys meet? And then how did this turn into this full documentary?
Because
That's right.
you're not.
I'll jump in and then segue in.
So we're not blood related. No, we're not blood relatives. But again, spiritual brothers for sure. But I'll let Kareem. It's a really dope story. But I'm gonna let Kareem lead us off, please, or invite him to lead off.
This is, I've been in the space, as a creative media expressionist since 2008. Even before 2008, I started a company, a media production company. So I've been in the space of telling stories, writing and telling stories for a while. However, this particular story came about as an homage to Sadiq's father, Hodari Ali. Hodari Ali was famously known for creating Pyramid Books, Pyramid Bookstores in Washington, D.C. Pyramid Books actually had, I believe, one of its landmark locations on the campus of the Mecca, Howard University. And so I knew his father a lot longer than I actually knew Sadiq. And I used to work with his father at WPFW Radio, Pacifica radio station. He had a program called The Struggle Continues, and I used to engineer for him on that radio program. And so I really developed a fondness for Brother Hodari, his work, within Cobra, around black activism, around the rights, of our people, to receive remuneration, for being enslaved, active, and always, upstanding, moral brother at the core and at the foundations from what I know of him. And one day I'd ask, this was some years after his passing, Sadiq to join me on a call with some elders. During the pandemic, everybody was doing Zoom meetings and stuff like that. And this particular call, the Qibla Circle, was a group, of black men and women, but mostly men. It was about 30 men on the line. And I asked Sadiq to actually join us because I felt like he'd get some benefit, from being a part of this group. Everybody on the call remember his father. Everybody had memories and stories, and it was almost like it brought tears to their eyes, and it became, this emotional moment, of recollection, acknowledgement. I believe at that point something was sparked in Sadiq, that he really needed to do something for his dad. So I'll let you segue in there. But that really was sort of the genesis of the idea to do something together?
Nah, bro, that's a beautiful first leg of the relay. And so from there, after that sort of conversation, and Kareem, I think is really like downplaying a little bit. There wasn't a dry eye in this like virtual space, including my own, because again, not only was I invited, Kareem asked me additionally to present out about some of the work I was doing in the community here in Baltimore. And sort of after that, like sort of mini presentation that I did, like, oh man, your dad would be so proud of you. My dad transitioned in 2011 due to prostate cancer, again, which us as brothers, we got to take care of ourselves. That's a whole nother conversation for another podcast, right? Episode. But my dad transitioned at 55 years old from prostate cancer. And again, was blessed to have him in my life for as long as I did, but the transition when I was, 28 or 29. And like many young brothers, don't fully understand their fathers until they are gone. They don't fully understand the impact of their fathers on their lives until their fathers have transitioned. And I was no exception to that. And so I had been thinking for many years, just like about the impact of my father on my life, and wanted to do something, but didn't know what it was, didn't know what shape it would take. And after that conversation, I'm like, man, we gotta do a documentary. Had no background or training in filmmaking, but I know somebody who did. His name was Karim Ali, who was a little brother to my dad, was essentially a mentee of my father's. Shortly after that call, I call up Karim. I'm like, Karim, we gotta do this. I need you. Are you in? And without hesitation, I'll tell anybody, without hesitation, Kareem was like, I'm in, whatever you need me to do. And that was over 4 years ago. And we've slowly sort of learned, we've built momentum, we've written, we've reflected to this point where now we are ready to unveil our initial vision for this documentary project. Again, They Said Niggas Don't Read: The Untold Power of the Black Bookstore, which as we were doing the research for the project, what started off as an homage to my father quickly became apparent that my dad was just one link in the chain, that he was a part of a larger story, a larger legacy that deserved to be told as well. In addition to me being able to honor my father and not only the impact that he had on my life as a son, but also the countless tens and probably hundreds of thousands of lives that he was able to impact through his businesses there in DC. And my dad was also widely known as sort of like having essentially the first chain of black bookstores in the DC area at 5 locations at one point. And so they were landmarks in the city. They served as the impetus for many other iterations of that work to follow. And again, it was all because, I got hit with this inspiration as a result of that conversation. And it just sort of, we got to do it. And the last thing I'll say is like, this is also an exercise in obedience. From a spiritual, from a faith perspective, right? It's like, I just posted on LinkedIn about this the other day. It's like, when you get a vision from the creator and the creator tells you to do the thing, he don't promise you it's going to be easy. He doesn't even promise you that it's going to get done. It's not even promise that it's going to look remotely like you think it's going to look. But if he says move, you got to move. And for us, this is a great example of being obedient and going through those trials, those tests, those tribulations in order to produce a thing. Because if you are faithful, like, the creator gonna back you up. And we've seen that happen time and time again for us to be able to arrive at that point. And so this is the end of the beginning, and we moving into the next phase of this thing, Lord willing.
Yeah. It seems like this is, as Kareem, you all mentioned your dad. This goes into like legacy. And you think about the story, what you're building, it's legacy. It's about literacy. Ultimately, it's gonna, when you put those together, a lot of times you can get to liberation. And so, as you kind of look through that, start thinking about those areas, about the legacy, the literacy, liberation. I believe this story is going to be necessary for everyone to hear, and especially in this particular cultural, political environment. It's 2025 right now. So has happened this year. A lot of stuff happened earlier this year. And so I think this is a great time for it. What are your thoughts?
Kareem, you want to take it?
Sure.
Like right now?
Sure. Yeah, on legacy and liberation. Well, as I found a quote in one of the books, now one of my favorite books that I'm currently reading by Katie Mitchell, Prose to the People. Reading is a revolutionary act, right? You think about, what revolution is and what it portends, and what comes from it, then the act of reading, which means what? Sparking of the intellect. There's no way that you free yourself, from the bondage, of the psychological images and chains, of enslavement, without uplifting your intellect, and increasing your knowledge. And that's obviously one of the first conduits of doing that is to actually read, right? And so if we want to be free in so many different respects, right? We want to free our psyche, we want to free our hearts. We want to remove the shackles, that bind us in so many ways, that we have to educate ourselves, It's interesting. Some of the viewers on this podcast might be familiar with what would be considered a cult classic, Belly. And I won't use like the majority of words on Belly that was said, but there was a scene when Nas and DMX were in the car, and Nas was having this thought. This man, and I just remember, like, I watched it yesterday, which I probably did because I do watch Belly every once in a while. And he said, man, you ever get a new thought? I'm reading this book, man, and it's creating this whole new format, right? And it came from what? It came from him actually delving into books. It came from him actually looking at information that was beyond, the stuff that, encouraged him to sell drugs and to, do nefarious acts. Obviously DMX, his famous line, can your shorty eat a book, right? And, and then, you can watch the scene. And I think that scene does catalyze the hope and the challenge that we face in our communities, right? The challenge that, so many of us have really bought into this notion that it's okay to be taught what to think and not how to think. He definitely was operating from this place of being taught what to think. And Nas was at this place where he was actually thinking on his own. And what's so ironic was that at the end of the movie, DMX had the epiphany. Why? Because he started studying, because he opened up books, and he ended up not being able to pull the trigger that was actually going to equal his freedom, because he had his intellect turned on to the knowledge of the person that he was sent to kill. That's deep, man. So once people say, man, that was a whack movie, it wasn't well acted, that's going to go down as a classic, because there's so many lessons that were in the writing of that. That's freedom, to be able to comprehend what it is that you're reading, the written word. And the big challenge that we're having today in America, not just in our community, and over the last 20 years, has been this decline in literacy just across the board, and not just socially indigenous people. And our relationship with the written word has really changed. And we've gone from having a relationship with the written word on parchment and on paper, to what we see on screens and what we see on gadgets, which as well just materially changes the way that we even think and think about the material world. So there's a lot to it.
That's right.
And so I'm going to let...
That's right.
Because there's a lot more I can even say about that. And I just talked about the freedom aspect of it and the legacy. I could go into the legacy a little bit later. But yeah, Sadiq, share from what's there for you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, bro. And ditto ashe, amen, I mean to all of that. I'll just add a couple of additional pieces. One, number one, just for the record, I learned something new about Karim today. Like, he's mentioned Belly, but this is the first time on record he's like, Belly, one of my favorite movies, and I watch Belly once a month. So let's start there. I wanna skip over that. But it's like a couple of additional pieces that I would say is like, and brothers, y'all mentioned it even before we started recording, right? This idea that there is anecdotal evidence of just dwindling interest in brothers and black men in reading, and what that will portend for our future. Not good things. We are in a proliferating period of AI slop, where now folks aren't even bothering to worry about what or how to think. They just letting the machine do it all for them.
Yes.
And if we are not putting in original thought into our brains will rot. And so, the whole idea that we have to encourage each other as black men to read, that is our heritage, that is a part of our legacy, is a really, really big deal. Frederick Douglass told us that knowledge unfits a man to be a slave. Knowledge unfits a man to be a slave. And so for me, we mentioned this in like a previous convo, but it's something that has been sort of sitting with me over the last couple of years, and that's this thought of like, one of our superpowers as black men, and I'll just say that it's a special thing that we do as brothers. I'll just say that, for everybody listening, we dictate what's cool.
For sure.
Like, period, full stop. We are the creators of cool. And so the challenge for all of us right now as black men is that we got to recalibrate cool. Reading is no longer cool. Before we started recording, we had a deep convo about hip hop, just a little bit, but it was deep in just a short amount of time. There was a group of MCs, right, that are now considered old school, right? But there's a burgeoning class as well that brothers take pride in being well read. The Kendricks, the Big Seans. There's a whole there's a class of MC, both then and now, that took pride in being well read because you could hear it in their rhymes. Whereas now you could hear the opposite in some of, again, it ain't even AI slop. It's actually human slop that's being passed off as music right now. No disrespect to the current generation. But if you do not read, it will not come out in your music or in your day-to-day dealings or in your articulation, etc. And so it's incumbent upon us to recalibrate cool and getting knowledge is as cool as getting money. Matter of fact, getting the knowledge will help you get the money.
Yes.
But we got to do our part, though, to recalibrate cool, and it starts with us living and breathing that example. Last thing I'll say on this point, also why now, is that not just this current administration is an outgrowth of a larger sort of mission of radicalization and white nationalism and all of this crazy stuff. But there's a movement right now to attack history, then a movement to attack blackness, and right now the very essence of truth is under attack. And so this project is timely as we are in a moment of history. It's out of some Ray Bradbury dystopian banning books, bro. Like, the next step is burning them. Yeah. That's the next step on this spectrum, yo. And so this film is timely to wake folks up and to recapture what is ours, again, especially people of African descent. But we know this is a larger conversation as well. As Karim just called out, literacy is under decline across the country. This is just an illiterate place right now. And so, yeah, I'll yield there.
No, that's a great segue. So how does literacy affect how black folks see themselves, like individually and collectively?
Man. The other sort of core thought, thank you for that, bro. The other core thought that I've had, in addition to us having a very unique ability to calibrate and recalibrate cool, we are also, my brother Goolsby, we are suffering from an epidemic of low self-esteem, in my opinion. And when you look at books, like Amos Wilson, the work of Amos Wilson, or the work of Naeem Akbar, even the early works of Elijah Muhammad, the first thing that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did was he was launching the Nation of Islam and growing the Nation of Islam is just to bring brothers in and just pour knowledge into them. So that way they can improve their self-image because they came in so beat up and beat down by the larger society. And so starting with books that are written by us, for us, giving us, a much more well-rounded perspective of who we are, that goes to building up our self-esteem, which likewise, again, unfits us to be slaves. It unfits us to be second-class citizens when we understand who we are. And that only comes from reading books that are by and about us, people of African descent. There's no substitute for that. So it's a critical part of it. Reading, and even with our young people, them reading books with characters that look like them. All of the research tells us that if you are not reading books with characters that look like you, you will never see yourself as the hero. Right. And so all of this has a direct impact into chipping away at our self-esteem as a people, which then has all told consequences and negative impacts that we're seeing right now in our community.
Yeah, and even in that, thinking about even on the hero standpoint, if you see someone outside of you being the hero all the time, you will never be able to see yourself as one.
That's right.
And that's one that I think, we've encouraged our sons and daughter to make sure they're always reading something. Doesn't matter. I don't care if it's 20 minutes a day. I need you to be reading something. I'm going to feed you things. I'm going to give you something specifically I want you to read, but I need you to be reading. Give me at least 20 minutes outside of the schoolwork, because that's going to be something different. And you understand, you need to be able to, you need a different lexicon, a different vocabulary as you move throughout your world. And so you can listen to, as we were talking about the music a few moments ago, like you can oh, they don't read. There's no way. You talk about, you use the same 100 different words over and over and over. Your vocabulary is limited, and also your experiences are limited, because you also don't even know what's even outside of what you know. What a lot of times books will give you is an experience outside of yourself and what you know, just through the visualization, just by taking that in from what's in the book. You don't have to go on vacation yet. You don't have to know what's out there yet. You can actually read about it, and you can almost just transplant yourself there, visually and mentally and emotionally.
Facts.
So what emotion guided you guys through this thing? Ooh, that's good. Like, was it determination, hope,
That's good.
sadness, inspiration?
Well, yeah, that question came up yesterday in another conversation we were having, and it kind of goes now to legacy, back to the legacy conversation. At least for me, what is my why, and it goes beyond just this project itself. It's like so much of what I've been involved in, for decades, having family and a son and having daughters, and wanting them to believe enough in themselves that anything that they could conceive and were interested in doing for themselves, that they would believe that they could actually accomplish those things. And it started with the founding of my company back in 2008, and even prior to that, I was in the information technology space for well over 15 years prior to that, and it's always sort of this firebrand. And I found that if people understood that you knew how to read and that you could think, your counterparts would actually be threatened, by you. And usually they were, parts that didn't look like you. There were folks that were, different, races and nationalities and what have you. And they had a particular thinking about who we were as a people. And so I found that independent streak that I had, it served me really well. It also made the path that I chose in life to have a lot more hills and mountains, than, like downhill, slides. I don't regret that at all. And now, where I am today, fast forward with this film and development, I was able to sit with two of my daughters and their children and husbands, and say, hey, put the YouTube on. Our teaser is actually about to drop. And so now in their eyes, wow, now with everything else that my father sought to do, now he's embarking on being a filmmaker and really striving to do it at the highest level. And I just have found that, we talk, and the movie itself, it's interesting. This conversation has us to really unpack a lot of who we are and what our philosophy is around, lifelong learning. The movie itself, I believe, is going to be a bit more specific in terms of how we treat the bookstore and what we understand about the bookstore itself, which is, I believe, something that is very important, to understand it as a character, what makes up the bookstore and the people who actually choose to go into that line of work. And so I sort of answer it there that, for me, reading has gotten me to a place where definitely expanded my thinking, has given me an expanded vocabulary. I find that, if you're with someone that, can't get beyond, 2 or 3 sentences without using an expletive, or a paragraph full of expletives, is usually because they don't have the vernacular or the language to really express the thoughts, that are in their mind. The son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Imam Waruddin Muhammad, is famously noted as saying, words make people. Words make people. And I found that to be so true. Is that the language, the words that you use actually do create your reality. And so I believe that you get to a place where you begin to use language and words that carry the requisite energy that it is that you're really seeking to impart to people in terms of, what's there in your mind and where they should be thinking.
Right now, me and Trey are reading Joe Dispenza's Being Supernatural, and that it's talking about the frequency and the wavelengths, and that we only see 0.035% of the light spectrum. So we're really just blind out here moving. And the things that we're focused on are things that don't even matter, like literally. And so since the other 99% are the things that you don't see, how do you focus on that to change your reality, change your frequency and the wavelengths in which you are? Because you keep living that past, that old mind, that old thoughts, release the chemicals, and then that feeling brings up that thought again, and it's this feedback loop. And so when I hear you speaking, that's what that reminds me of. And I know I'm going to make a quick segue to when folks watch this film, what is it that you hope they feel when they walk out? And then is there something you want them to do next? If
Did you want me to take that, or you got this?
Yeah, I can jump in. I actually want to go back because the
you're right,
last
'cause I
question you
did.
asked, Goolsby. Yeah, no, it's good. Nah, bro, I'm tracking. I would just add in like the probably like the three emotions, and again, I think it segs nicely into sort of what we want folks to sort of take away from this project when it's complete, Lord willing, next year. But I think for me, sort of like the three emotions that I've been sitting with up to this point, like the last couple of years we've been sort of developing this thing, is certainly, starting from an assets perspective, I feel deep pride. I feel a sense of deep pride, right? Not only at the work that my father was able to get done in his short time here in the physical, right? But certainly some pride, and then pride like of the part he played in the overall ecosystem, the overall history and story of these institutions. Pride at what we've gotten done as a people, despite continued unrelenting opposition and sabotage and tyranny and terror. We still here, y'all. We still cranking. If that don't make you proud, man, check your pulse, baby. That pride also, though, gives way to a little bit of sadness in the sense that, man, we could be so much further along if we truly all live that each one teach one philosophy. And right now, one of my purveying thoughts also of late is like, man, not enough of us care about all of us, which is hard, but it's like, if you're only concerned about yourself, I'm like, shouldn't you be winning? It's kind of easy if I only was thinking about me. Like, is your success really that impressive? To me, not really. That's just me, just one man's opinion. And so for me, there's a deep sadness that we could be further along. I don't know that we should be, but we could be in the face of all that we've overcome. And so a little bit of sadness. And then I would ultimately say, and like RIP to a good brother that I lost earlier this year to suicide. It's a beautiful brother, man, but that we lost too soon. Had a lot of demons. I'm gonna say his name, but a good brother, Atreus Good. Rest in power. Good partner of mine. But he always used to say, Sadiq, my superpower is rage. I am always angry. I am always angry at the state of our people. And I think in part that anger, I think certainly probably contributed to his, and I've tried to shy away from like, a premature, because the creator said that it was mature, that it was his time. So who am I to say that it was premature, right? I would just say, I wish I had him longer. I wish we had him longer. But in his short time on the planet, I believe that contributed to him, but also powered his work in again, a sort of supernatural sort of way as well. And for me in this project, just being angry, like, man, a point that I made recently as well was just like driving while black, walking while black, bird watching while black, walking your dog while black, cooking some noodles while black, buying some iced tea and Skittles while black, eating ice cream on your couch while black, and damn, reading while black, bro. We can't even read while black without these monkeys being on our back, bro. It's like, what the F? And so I am angry at the fact that yet again, another example of our humanity, the very right sort of core of that was attempted to be disrupted yet again. That makes me angry, y'all. That makes me angry. And so that is certainly powering, helping me to power through this project. And that ties into like what we want folks to feel, as they're watching this finished project. Certainly, we want folks to sort of like be edutained, right? Because there's gonna be some pieces where we want folks to feel an emotional connection to the characters in our project that are just amazing, deeply layered, but above all else are in service to our people as their life's work, And so that Edutainment, also shout out Boogie Down Productions, one of my favorite albums of all time. Edutainment, led by KRS-One. We want folks to feel edutained. We want folks to feel excited and share in that pride, right? Of growing all of our confidence to new levels and new plateaus by just going and picking up a single book can change everything, as you brothers just said. And then again, we do want folks to get a little upset. We kind of want to enrage folks too, enough to go and take action, which could look like, starting a book club. Y'all, one quick anecdote, as we've been building up our followership over on our Instagram page at They Said NDR, of course, it's like up here too on my background. Brother, we have followed probably 800 online book clubs, reading groups. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. 750 of them are run by sisters.
Yep.
So I especially want to encourage us to go and get activated, to start book clubs, which we are seeing a little bit of a renaissance of right now. Study groups. You brothers again have a dope thing here. Y'all have a small study group, like to study and read and go and take action with all of this. So we hope that was again like super long-winded, but like that's what's powering me right now. That's what Lord willing we want folks to take away from this project, in no small measure.
And anger. We read, help me out here, Dr. Letting Go, Dr. Forget his name off the top of my brain.
Yeah.
But anger is better to have than grief. Actually, you want to be angry. If you're down on the emotional scale, to move up to anger is good, because that's that you need to move.
It's a motivator. It's motivating energy. Yeah.
Right. I learned that from a book. Yeah. So it's okay to be mad. Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's right. And James Baldwin told us again to be, paraphrased, to be even, a modicum of conscious in America as a black person is to be perpetually enraged. Yeah. To be perpetually mad, y'all. Yeah. Not enough of us is mad either. That's another combo.
It's true.
Yep. Dr. David Hawkins, that's what it is.
Hawkins, yeah.
Oh, I think I've heard it.
Yeah, I recommend that book to anybody. I don't care what color you are. It's very helpful. Man, we could keep talking.
We could. I wrote down a few things here. I wish we had time to talk through original thoughts, but we'll get into that.
We gotta
do some rapid fires. Y'all give us some rapid fires. I promise we're gonna be short with it. We gotta be short.
So
I want to hear some of these last joints, man, because again, y'all doing an amazing job.
You actually mentioned something about kind of folks going into AI, and for those of us that use it and don't use it, we talked about the idea. One of the things that I've kind of paid attention to. Don't forget that most of our, and this is going to feel like it's coming from left field, but I think you're going to get where I'm going. A lot of the large language models are fed with what they have right now. They're not creating necessarily anything. So if the user is only pulling in information or pulling information from what's already exists and not creating anything new, then you could end up coming to a place where there's a cliff, because there's nothing new being created, only just reiterated in some particular way.
Yeah.
And so you start to realize, and I think you're going to start seeing it more and more, because we're kind of seeing it now, where the level of creativity and creation overall just going to plummet. And what I notice is, so it's kind of thinking about, as we read and gather new experiences, read new things, experience new things, either visually, kind of taking in cognitively and so on. If you, how do you advocate folks like, this is why you need to do this? This is why. It's not just so that you can have different experiences. But like from a creative standpoint, lift that up a little bit more for folks of like, this is why you need to be reading.
Well, so I'll answer that in this way. One of the things I've learned in the years that I've been here is that generally when you tell somebody what they need to do, it really doesn't land. It's a best practice to, in my view, to figure out how to bring someone to an understanding of what should be done on their own, like it'd be a self-discovery piece. And so this film is in part that, like when you can, and I had a really emotional reaction to, the first versions of the teaser when our editor, Sharper, I'll just shout her out, Francesca, because she helped me to experience the work that we had put in for over a year, right? And the outcome of this project for me is that now I have actually, every time I turn around, I got a book flying in my house or on Amazon or somebody. It's more people are sending me books that I don't even ask for. They're sending me, I need you to review this. I've had at least 4 or 5 PhDs send me books for review, believe it or not. They want me, based on a conversation, I want you to review my book. So to answer that question, I believe when the film itself is written and shot and presented in a way that helps people experience something inside, then the answers come up to the top for themselves, and then they'll begin to take the action. And I believe that that's actually how you get, it's almost like, if you want someone to actually take an action or to learn a lesson, they won't learn the lesson if you say, see, that's why you should have done X, Y, and Z. Actually what happens is they stop listening to you. You shut down the listening of that person when you do that. When you're like, okay, I don't necessarily align with what you did, and let's just see what the outcome. I'm gonna align with what you did, but we'll see what the outcomes are. And when they realize, like, wow, that didn't work out, that's a lesson that you would have never been able to teach them by telling them. And it takes a lot more patience. And we want people to view the film and to see what comes up and what wells up inside of them, when they experience, all these different aspects that we're actually able to bring onto the screen. But I think lastly on that is that it's modeled behavior. If parents really want their children to do more as far as reading, that it's, or any person in authority who has a cohort of people that, look up to them, who they're mentoring, it's modeled behavior, as opposed to saying what you should do, or what you shouldn't do. I just don't think that lands for people. And that's been my experience.
If we fixed literacy, what problems would just fade automatically?
If we
It's a deep question.
Literacy.
Well,
That's a sort of multi-layered question.
Right.
I believe, I'll answer it in this way. For me, I think getting past. I don't know that I have the answer to that directly, but one of the things I did want to point out that I think is stepped over a lot is the stigma, around learning. There are those that actually have disabilities, or their comprehension is not, at the level of others, right? And that may have a lot to do, with the educational rigor that they were exposed to, coming up, or lack thereof, right? And so to that extent, some of the issues that create the stigma really aren't talked about. For example, some people have a real difficult time staying with written material for very long. They'll start reading a book, and then after about 3 minutes, they start yawning, right? And after 5 minutes of sleep, and they wake back up 30 minutes later, and then they just really don't go back to the work, or they end up, worse yet, saying something to themselves about themselves and about their ability to learn. And I don't believe that that's really addressed. and there are a lot of people, because I was one of them. And I told a story and my parents are probably some of the most avid readers that I know. My father was avid reader. He had, their notion of making me, become an avid reader as well was a sit and read A Tale of Two Cities, that 900-page, novel by Mark Twain, and give me a book report, right? That didn't work though, for me, because I fell asleep within every time, and and I had a generic little book report, it said be good people or whatever, however, so that didn't work for me. I feel like, however, that experience, though, having books, seeing my father read, experiencing my mother reading, and experiencing their intellect, it did put a lot on my mind and on my heart for many years that I didn't know later on in life I was actually going to be pulling from that archive that they actually put in my mind. And so modeling the behavior, actually encouraging, and then also I think by extension, like demonstrating, like somehow figure out from what we're reading, let's now look at the material world and apply it. I feel like a lot of folks really don't get to a place where reading or learning is of interest to them because they don't see how it applies in real life. And so if we could actually make material applicable to what they see is around them and makes a difference, that could make a difference. And then also finding out what is of interest to you, because you're more than likely going to read more material that you like and is of interest to you than A Tale of Two Cities, because believe me, I didn't like that book at all,
Yeah. I started thinking about as you were closing there. We just finished up Octavia Butler's Peril of the Sword for folks, and that takes place right now in a dystopian right now.
Right.
Like young.
Right.
Somebody's watching. But I think that's spot on. I completely agree. That idea of modeling, just dip your toe in. Start with a little bit. Have reading time as a family, even if it's 10 minutes. I think that can be a big deal.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even me growing up, my big mama passed in '92, and we got real into the church, and we had Bible study from 12 to I don't know, till I was 18, and it was like we had to have it, and I became an a-hole doing it, but it really pushed me to think about what we were reading. That's and right. What we were talking about, and it made me ask questions that my dad couldn't answer, but it pushed as well. So it was like
That's great.
But now I've gone back though, which is so funny because the first verse in Genesis is in the beginning God created. Stop. We are creators. Like now I have a whole different mind on how I'm looking at what's being said. So I think bringing books into the household period. I don't care if it's Thomas the Train or Dr.
Used to it. Just exercise the muscle. Just exercise the muscle. Because again, if you don't use it, you will lose it.
Yeah, my parents actually invested in the Encyclopedia Britannica. You remember they had the volume set.
Yeah. We got the whole set.
Yeah, we had the whole set. Yeah.
And the reference.
I think
right.
My wife was asking, when we had this conversation, we were going somewhere. She was like, what the question was, what is it that she asked me, like, what is it that I think I consider as gold that I owned that's not gold? And she said, my books. I was like, I think my library is beautiful. I think my library has helped me in so many different ways. It's changed my life in a lot of different ways. And I think about that all the time. Like, trust me, if you just, all you need is that one good book, kind of shift every single thing.
That's it.
One little piece that, like, you know what? How do we go in that? We started off with one book. And it was like, and it was like, I think it was a phone call. You want to read something else? We're like, yeah, beautiful. What you reading? I don't know. What you never read before? And I think it's just been this constant thing of like us trying to make sure it just continues to build and build. And now, I mean, our library, we get. I think it was one time we had suggestion after suggestion. Hey, have you read this? Have you read this? Oh, don't forget we need to pick this up. We got to pick this up. Yep. And so Karim, Sadiq, I know I got a book. I just got a book yesterday. I just got, you know who I got? I got the guys from EYL. I got Rashad and Troy's book, You Deserve to Be Rich.
Okay.
I just picked that up. I came yesterday. And it's like, I probably have a book coming every week. So I got a backlog right now, but you know, those are my pieces of.
What I want to figure out is how I can just put my hand, like Meteor Man, I can just put my hand on pages and I just memorize. Give it to me.
So look, Kareem knows this. Funny enough, I'm actually in a speed reading course right now. It's too much stuff I want to read. And I told him I took my first speed reading course about 20 years ago. And you slowly, it's just like anything else. Like if you don't really because again, we are taught to read in one way, which is really not that useful. It's really not that productive. And obviously you can get tons done with a sort of rudimentary framework of reading. But if you don't practice and really train your mind and your eyes and your field of vision to expand, then you revert. You regress. And it sort of happened to me over these. I retained some of it, but yeah, just earlier this year, I reinvested in that, and so would definitely offer that to folks because it's just too much content. It's just too, it's too much stuff. That we need to learn, that we need to absorb, right, in order to get us to where we need to be. Because if we already had the answer, we should be in a different place then, right? I mean, we ain't read the thing yet. We ain't read it yet. We getting there, but we ain't read it yet.
This is my last question. Y'all had this moment where you've had a theory about something and you found it in a book that someone else had the same theory, and then you're like, wait a minute, I can't. So and it confirmed the theory that you have, but someone is completely outside of your sphere that you just picked it up and someone said the exact same thing that you had a theory about before.
1000%. I'm trying to think of a great example, but that has absolutely happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've had something similar, maybe not as direct as a direct quote. However, partner of mine, outside the Sadiq and I are partners. I have another colleague that we do work inside the what we call social architecture, a social architecture of language, a social architecture, of human development, human relations. And in that work, let's say over the last 5 years, we've actually developed a process for really solving any challenge, any human social challenge. We have a process for it. And the step one in that process we call quantum listening. So what really we have discovered, and I'm sure that this actually is covered, and sort of the annals of science, if you do the research, that we have 5 senses, right? We operate with 5 senses, probably more. 5 senses that we know of, that sight, sound, touch, smell, hearing. That we've actually learned how to turn on all 5 senses in our communication and our listening. When you turn on all 5 senses, it's not just about what you say or what someone says, but it's using all of those senses to really interpret what is actually coming into your being. Now that has actually been work that we found in other works that we've studied, where it confirms our understanding, especially if you look at science and you look at chemical reactions. So I've actually had that happen where what I've been studying actually is confirmed, by other, because I don't believe that there's anything new under the sun. I mean, we've heard that expression, that knowledge isn't created amongst us. Actually, knowledge is what actually comes down, from the Creator, and it's up to all of us then to, grab a hold of what's actually come down, right? And so it's already here. And what little spin you're able to put on it, because your intellect is going to be different than someone else's, actually is going to be the signature that you can claim, so even if I and that's why I use soulfully indigenous as a replacement for what we would call black, and why? Because I mean, if you think about it, we're indigenous to this land. I actually can't point back to a country that I'm from in Africa. I mean, I believe I'm from Africa. I haven't done the studies to know, but I certainly, if I even went back to that country, I couldn't, go to a village that my family was in, just like that. And who's more? So I'm indigenous to these lands of America. And who's more soulful? Who's more soulful than us in this country? It's like what Sadiq said. He says, and we created cool, man. We're the architects of cool, and everything that's here is cool. And in fact, you take us out of the out of the mix, and this would be a plain Jane situation, and we know that, And so I say, man, we're soulfully indigenous, and I'm gonna stand on that, and so that only comes from reading and my understanding of how I broke the words down. So I could even go further. So not directly like, oh, hey, that quote is directly what I've already been saying, except when somebody plagiarize your work, which does happen as well. But that's another story.
Yeah.
And you know something? I know we gotta wrap it up. But what you said made me think of martial arts, and I'm turning words into this verbal art where I've changed JKD into, because you have attack by drawing, you have attack by combination, you have single direct attack, you have hand immobilization, and you have progressive indirect attack.
Yeah.
And so I'm now applying that to my language, because once you start thinking and using words, now you start dealing with people who know how to use words. They will, and you like, what just happened? I thought I knew what was going on.
Right. No, that's really, the
That's a great
jujitsu,
point.
the jujitsu of language, right? And I mean, and it goes back to that quantum listening, because you would only get to a place where you understand that, I need to, apply a particular waza because I'm listening, right? I'm listening to what happened. I heard what he said. I heard, and I felt the energy that came, from those words. And so now my response is actually, measured and catered to that. Absolutely correct, and that's where you find, man, you have the most effective communication, with two people that are actually listening to one another.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I would love to do it again.
Appreciate
just
y'all, brothers.
to have one.
Yep.
So
Wait.
Really get into the books. Really get into the books, man. Like Leah, like what we reading.
Yeah.
I want to
I would really enjoy that.
I just want to know, what's one book that you're reading right now? I just want to hear that. Then I close.
Sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, we pulled that one up earlier, man. This Disintegration by Eugene Robinson came out probably about 15 years ago now. I think he put this out originally, looks like 2010, right as Obama was warming up. And in this book, Eugene Robinson essentially posits that Black America is no longer one Black America, which we've known for some time that Black folks are not monolithic. That's like a very common theme these days, especially as an electorate. But he actually proposes language around the 4 different Black Americas that exist right now, and sort of the language of both of like how they came to be, what are their characteristics, and most importantly, how do we sort of, again, reintegrate those 4 different sort of Black Americas. Very, very fascinating read, just like phenomenal so far. I'm about halfway through. That was highly recommended to me for years, but again, finally got to it on the list. So that's my one right now.
Yeah,
Karim,
I'm in the process of reading about 3 books right now. One from Dr. Kevin Washington, Ubuntu Psychotherapy, and it's sort of an Afro-centric approach to mental health and wellness. And this past weekend, I just got this book by a brother, Pierpont Mobley, Backside of the White House. And so this brother actually spent, I believe, 20 some odd years actually working in the White House. We spent the weekend together at a retreat, and he talks about being not an attorney, but he works in the area of civil rights, working in the civil rights division. And it's a memoir of his time actually working at the White House. And so I'm finding that to be very interesting. And got some other stuff. Katie Mitchell's book is one that I think Baba Paul said it's tough to read, it's tough to get through, because and that's prose to the people, because it's got so much in terms of inserts and photos and things of that nature. But it's also like a great read, an anthology of the bookstores in the United States, Black bookstores in the United States. So I've got a few of them on tap right now.
All right, and how can people find y'all as well? Like what? And I know you have it on your screen, but for those,
take it away, Sadiq. That's you.
Hey, listen, man, They Said NDR on IG, as well as on Facebook, and also on our website, which is just recently beautifully redesigned, ndrfilm.com. And it's on our website where folks and on our socials where folks can link over to our crowdfunding campaign, of which, to all of our sort of new friends, your faithful listeners of the As a Man Readeth podcast, if they've enjoyed any of what we've said or found resonance
Right.
in anything that we've shared, we'd be honored to have you all support in helping to bring this project to life. It is a community project. In the same way that community has sustained these very institutions, we're asking for support to help us bring this film project to life. And so we're closing out the development phase of the project, and Lord willing, in Q1 of 2026, we'll be moving into production. And so that crowdfunding campaign is the goal is to raise $100,000 against a $500,000 total budget. And Lord willing, we're going to hit that and then some in these next 30 days. And so we need everybody's support. If you care about Black folks, if you care about books, if you care about the medium of film, Lord willing, this is a project for you. And again, we invite you in, and we'd be honored for your support.
Yes.
Karim, man.
Thank you so much. Thanks for this opportunity. Appreciate
Blessings,
it.
bro. Yeah, this is amazing.
Thank you all so much. Thanks you all so much for being here. Look here, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Don't forget to check out the show notes as well.
Read the book.
This is Trey D.
And Goolsby.
And we'll see you on the next episode.
Hey.